I'm going to be moderating the last panel discussion today about workforce development needs related to this pretty exciting energy transformation that's going on right now, energy and transportation transformation. As a little bit of background about myself, I'm the Deputy Director at Renewable Energy Vermont, where our mission is to promote 100% clean renewable energy, much of it generated here, right here in the state, we hope. Prior to that, I worked at the University of Vermont's Transportation Research Center, so I'm really aware of how transformative this is, both on the electric power side and on the transportation side. And calling out, recognizing, as Barry Woods presented in the last presentation, there's really a great synergy between this technology, this vehicle technology, and clean renewable energy, so that's very exciting. In fact, two of our members, iSun and SunCommon, are both working very actively now in developing solar charging canopies, where you can have a carport with a solar canopy and potentially charging in areas where there isn't the kind of grid connectivity that you would need for a connected station. Just to provide a little bit of context about this, the workforce development needs that we're facing, the Advanced Energy Economy group recently put out a report on California's projected workforce needs as it relates to electrified transportation. And since California is often, at least with respect to electric vehicles, referred to as the Quebec of the United States, I thought it would be appropriate to give this a quick shout out. Essentially, this report is projecting very rapid growth in the workforce needs for electrified transportation. The report states that there are currently 35,000 people in California working in this sector and projects it to grow to close to 70,000 in the next 2 years. This goes all the way from manufacturing, wholesale distribution, retail sales, installation of electric vehicle charging equipment, and maintenance of both the vehicles and that charging equipment. So really runs the gamut of the things that are involved there, involving careers from electricians, auto technicians, all sorts of engineers who are working on the development of the car, and planners thinking about where we want the charging infrastructure. So it is a very big lift to get ready for really large scale electrification. In the United States, there's some significant federal dollars that are being committed to that. The DOE and DOT have a $7.5 billion initiative to build out charging infrastructure. And obviously the car manufacturers are increasingly dedicating resources to this. To make this transformation happen, we're going to need a lot of people who have some new and specific skills, both on the automotive side of things and also on the charging infrastructure side of things. And we have two great panelists today who are working on developing those skills in the workforce regionally. And so without further ado, I'll pass the torch over to Eric to tell you about what they're doing at St. Jerome.
Well, thank you very much, Jonathan. Thanks to all. It's a real pleasure for me to be part of this event today. Thanks to the CBC for the invitation, and also to Marie-Claude and her teams for all the support. What I'm going to do today, I'm going to talk to you a bit about, well, what we're doing here in St. Jerome regarding these new skills, regarding the EV maintenance and fabrication. I'm going to talk to you also about who are we working for in this project, who are our partners. And talking about partners, I'll end it up with talking about our latest, but not the least, partnership with the White Mountain Community College. Well, so first of all, starting in 2016 in St. Jerome, the St. Jerome College was the first educational institution in Quebec and Canada, and probably at that time in North America, to launch a training program dedicated to the specialized skills needed to work on EVs. As a college in the Quebec's educational system, our mission is to form new technicians for the job market. And in the EV world, that means technicians able to offer tech support for the engineers, the engineering teams, and that makes sure that production lines within the manufacturers are operating properly with top quality, and also who are be able to take care of the maintenance of EVs when they're on the road. These new graduated technicians that we're forming since 5 years are hired at the end by EV manufacturers, EV fleet owners, and also EV maintenance companies. So we were the first to develop these new skilled workforce And I would say that we're proud to embrace this pioneer role. But we're not the only pioneers in the EV world. We're not the first. In Saint-Jérôme, it is since the year 2000 that research and development institutions were created to work on EV development. And still today, the Innovative Vehicle Institutions, IVI, is a leader in research and development regarding the transport electrification, sorry about that, and also the EV developments. The Innovative Vehicle Institution was our first partner in that project of building that program, the training program, and it's still our closest partner because it is an institution that is affiliated to our college. So we're working with them day in, day out. It's a team of 20 engineers and 5 specialized technicians. And so you can, these technicians working with the IVI were trained, are graduated students from our program. Also, I would say that in Quebec, well, the idea of EV development is in the air since sooner than year 2000. Hydro-Québec is having people working on this since the 90s and maybe even sooner. Third of all this research and development doing in our region and educational work takes place in what we could call a very dynamic economic ecosystem regarding EVs. We have many EV manufacturers in Quebec. Marie-Claude has named a few of them earlier. So just remember, we're manufacturing buses, trucks, boats, motorcycles, off-road electric vehicles, but also there's development in forestry electric vehicles, agricultural electric vehicles, and mining production vehicles also. We have also EV components manufacturers, batteries, motors, wiring and harness, and as we saw in the earlier panel, of course, charging stations. So the demand for skilled labor workforce is increasing regarding the EVs, and our partnership with manufacturers and the Innovative Vehicle Institution allows us to make sure that our training program is updated year after year, make sure that we are following the evolution of EV technologies. Talking about partners, well, our newest one, and not the least, the White Mountain Community College. So we've been in touch with Chuck's team since several months, well, probably in the beginning of the pandemic. And so we're working with them, and I'll let Chuck maybe present a little more with more emphasis his project. But what we're going to do here, since we're giving a program aiming at these skills for the EV maintenance and EV productions, well, we're going to provide them our teaching material for a few of our courses, and also offering coaching for their teachers. Our teachers will work with their teachers offering coachings, and of course, any collaboration that would be needed along the road of their project. So as pioneers in EV trainings, development of the EV workforce, we're glad to work with other pioneers in this area. So that's a great project for us to be able to work with the White Mountain College. So that's briefly what I would have to share with you today. I'll leave the word to Chuck to continue on the project.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Eric, and Jonathan. Thanks for moderating, getting us together here. Chuck Lloyd, I'm the president at White Mountains Community College, and first I'd like to thank the NECVC for inviting me, being part of this. I've already learned so much. You heard from Eric, the pioneering, the starting of things. New Hampshire clearly has some catching up to do, and just this relationship's been important. So I'd also like to extend thanks to Senator Shaheen, her video earlier, just her ongoing support. Representative Tim Egan, who I know is on this, has been a great encourager and collaborator to bring these relationships together, as has Representative Linda Massimilla. St. Jerome, you've just been awesome. Obviously the pandemic has not helped us at all to physically come together with the border closures, et cetera. But with technology, we figured out some of it, and I look forward to to next steps. For us, just a little overview. I've personally been at White Mountains Community College for just about 5 years as president. I've been within the community college system for about 19 years. the community college system is spread out across New Hampshire. So as we talk about this relationship, workforce in New Hampshire, it is not just the North Country we're focused on, it is broadly across the state. We have 7 colleges, 12 locations, and White Mountains Community College specifically, we cover the northern half of the state, the northern 3 counties. We're in North Conway, Berlin, and Littleton, which, as you're well aware, is on the 93 corridor coming down from St. Jerome specifically. When we first started talking about workforce and how it relates to electrification and our vehicles, I said, well, geez, we have an automotive program. We have a diesel heavy equipment technology program. We also have an industrial maintenance millwright program, which, all of those individuals currently are looking for workforce, and we've really broadened the programs themselves. In collaboration with St. Jerome, one of the things we're working on is the infusion of electric vehicle technology. Another shout out to Representative Egan. He encouraged us to work closely with Electrify America to obtain a grant. So we've got a grant to support some of this work. We were very lucky to get that. And we have started the curriculum development, sharing. And let me just tell you as an aside here, Eric is just a great collaborator. By no means is there, this proprietary information. There's such a sharing and encouragement. And I'm seeing that across, all of these panels we've talked about, is I think we're all in this, not just for us to increase workforce, but also to increase access, going forward. So we've set some pretty aggressive goals, and I'm sure Eric could agree with that. We already have a course that's about to kick off this summer. We're hoping to have a certificate available for next year for our current students, but also for people out in the existing industries working at dealerships, and all of a sudden you're seeing more hybrid or EV cars coming in and understanding how to work on those. But also down the road, we're looking at transfer opportunities where we cap out at the associate degree level. There is a baccalaureate degree partner sitting right in front of me here in Eric in St. Jerome that potentially our students may want to pursue further education. And at the community college level, that's one of our primary roles, is to work on transfer articulation partnerships. So we see that as just another way to have a relationship here. We are building a new facility over in Littleton. It is a 10,000 square foot facility right off the highway. That is, we're calling it our advanced technology lab, because we are beyond just diesel heavy equipment. All of our partners, our advisory boards are saying, yeah, sure, diesel is a piece of what we do, but all of that off-road equipment, we're starting to really infuse battery storage, electrification, and even the on-road trucking aspect of it as well. So we have a new facility going in, and we are being very intentional now. What sort of power infrastructure do we need to have as we're building this to plan for the future? So that's literally in the works right now. And I guess the last piece I'll wrap up with is there's a current skilling, there's a reskilling, but there's also the upskilling aspect to this, of folks that are going to continuously come back for more training, more information. And I think that's part of our relationship with St. Jerome is, once we get an initial foundation, I see this as an ongoing upgrading, trying to catch up, to use that term again, to the pioneers here. And just my gratitude and my thanks to how open St. Jerome has been, and the bringing together from Marie-Claude as well, of just really encouraging this partnership, this relationship. And I will say the response we're allowed to then have to industry and the needs, not just in New Hampshire, but the northern region of New England in general. So I look forward to the conversation today, and thanks once again for having me.
Thanks to Eric and Chuck for a great start to this conversation. Chuck, I wondered if you wanted to elaborate a little bit on the importance of vehicle electrification and the electrification of transportation to the economy in your part of the area. I know that Eric talked a bit about the manufacturing that's going on in the vicinity of St. Jerome. Obviously, in northern Vermont and New Hampshire, that plays a smaller role. But if you wanted to talk about how you see your program supporting New Hampshire's economic well-being.
Sure, absolutely. People may have read recently from the Business and Economic Affairs Commissioner Taylor Caswell put out that we had a record summer last year, even in the pandemic, of visitors, particularly to the North Country. And, I always think of that as limited. like we could be doing more. We could be doing a lot more. Our primary, sector is hospitality, recreation, tourism in the North Country. And I honestly, aside from the border being closed last year, I honestly see there's a real opportunity. If you were to come across the border down into Littleton, New Hampshire, sure, there are some charging stations there. However, if you want to come over to the White Mountains, there's a real emptiness. We saw the map earlier. There are not charging stations to get you over to Berlin, to Gorham side of the mountains, and to Mount Washington specifically, which is a major tourist attraction. So first of all, there's an infrastructure that's needed. There's going to be installation that's needed. There's going to be maintenance that's needed. But also, I feel a hesitation of anyone in the North Country to want to purchase electric vehicles because they are very limited. We heard Sam earlier say, the Nissan Leaf just going downtown. I would pick on Tim Egan, who I know is over at Sugar Hill. For him to come over to Berlin and back, he needs to be real intentional about making sure he's got his charge, because there aren't stations over here. But I also see a need for a new workforce. Aside from hospitality, tourism, recreation, healthcare, and some municipalities, we don't necessarily have a robust workforce beyond into the manufacturing, as Eric talked about, or otherwise. So I also see there's a potential for a new industry to really break into the North Country. And I think some of it can be some of the manufacturing aspects. Littleton has an industrial park with, just some robust other types of, Rotaback or Genfoot, some of these great companies that are there. But I also see maybe there's an EV manufacturing aspect there, coming over the border, and maybe there's opportunity for growth and, allow New Hampshire once again to play catch up, but also, infuse the workforce in the North Country. So again, back to the reskilling, the pandemic has created what everyone called the great resignation, right? So folks are changing jobs, changing careers. Maybe now is the time. This might be the opportunity. And we're trying to be in front of that by training the workforce before things necessarily exist, trying to get in front of that.
Talking about the importance of the tourism industry certainly resonates here in Vermont. I know that there are two components. We need to have the charging infrastructure to support the people who are living and working locally, but we don't want to lag if the surrounding cities are seeing faster adoption than we are. We want to make sure people can get to our ski areas, etc., and so that we remain a tourist destination at New Hampshire as well. Eric and then Chuck, I think you could both weigh in on this, but what kind of interest are you seeing in these programs? How much recruiting do you have to do? Are potential workers seeing this as an area of growth, or is it taking a lot of energy on your part to attract people to be interested in these programs?
I can start, Chuck. In Quebec, well, we've seen increasing in the interest as much as the number of employment available for these people having these getting our diploma, but also people interested in being a part of that program. Usually for the first year, we were having maybe 10 to 15 students groups. Last year was a 25 student groups, and this week I had a kind of an information evening to give information about the program to all the people, and we had 80 person who had subscribed for that virtual information. So we see that, well, here the electric vehicle is much more on the roads. We see them more often. A lot of people are buying them. So, and we see also that the electrification of the transport is not only in cars, but as I said, on all other vehicles. So there's a lot of people who have that's working right now as mechanicians or electromechanicians that see this and say, well, that's a great career opportunities for me. So they're jumping in. And so, yes, I will soon have kind of too much people for the amount of students I can accept, which is a great problem for us.
Yeah, and I guess I'll jump in. We're still the new guy on the block, if I can say it that way. And since we're just rolling out our first introductory course, we're actually piloting it on our current students in our automotive technology program this semester. So students who initially signed up for our automotive program are fully understanding. All right, we need to understand and learn more about the EV side of things. So we're just dipping our toe in, and we don't even have it quite built. We're a month out from Eric and his team coming down to do the train the trainer aspect of things. So we're probably, a few months out from being able to advertise and market. But I can tell you just from anecdotal, our students who are piloting, we do have a Switch Labs car, a kit car that came in from California we had ordered, and they've been taking it apart and putting it together over the course of the last 6 months or so. There's a lot of interest in, the number one advertising in the world is always word of mouth. So we've got students who are here now, hands-on learning, enjoying it, and I'm sure they're having conversations with friends and colleagues already.
Terrific. And Chuck, you mentioned the reskilling and upskilling a couple of times, and we do have workforces working in these areas. Community colleges have traditionally played an important role in those areas. I know there are a few national institutions that are offering some sort of more limited training. The electric vehicle infrastructure training program rather is offering a certificate for EVSE installers. The National Fire Protection Association is offering training to firefighters, because combating a fire with a lithium-ion battery is different than a gas tank. Can you talk a little bit about what you see as ways to engage the current workforce in doing that reskilling and upskilling?
Sure, and I would say it's very targeted. We have, I mentioned our advisory committee. We have folks on our advisory board for automotive technology, for example, from Berlin City, which is a dealership just down the road from us. And sometimes they're already getting specific dealer upgrades and training that's required, but they'll let us know where there are gaps. So then we can do some non-credit traditional training to bring them up to speed. The other thing we're doing is we're having direct conversations with Caterpillar. Milton Cat is a very big organization. Caterpillar's always been an excellent partner for us, but they're talking about how they're transitioning some of their equipment to electric and how they've got some internal training, but again, where we fit into the upskilling of folks that have been maybe out in the workforce for a while and need to have 3 or 4 modules. And that's part of our future conversation with Eric to say, how do we take this credit bearing program that we're currently using, whether it's for a certificate, degree, or transfer articulation, and be able to say, all right, if they just need this piece, how do they come in and spend those 4 weeks out of a 15-week term? So we're intentional there. I'm glad you mentioned firefighters, the difference there. One of our colleges, Lakes Region Community College, has the fire science program. So, as I speak about White Mountains, I also want to speak about the community college system. We all have special, customized programs, fire science being one of those. And I know this is something they're infusing. Beyond that, I also know there's an electrician program. My brother actually went through at Lakes Region Community College. We learned early in the game when we talked about charging stations, that is not a place we're going to get into, is the installation, where you definitely need an electrician, especially trained electrician. However, Lakes Region Community College has that program. That's where they're going to get into, whether it's upskilling or early training as well. And I'll go back to the reskilling as well. I think there's a workforce out there looking to change jobs and has already resigned. And I think there's an opportunity here to target some folks that may want to get into a new clean energy position.
Just remind the audience, feel free at any point to raise a hand and we'll get questions from you as well. I've got a few more, and I know Tim Egan said that he had one, but anything you want to know about this, it's an important area, and we've got 2 great panelists, so feel free to jump in at any time. In the meantime, Eric, I wanted to direct to you, since you've been doing this for 5+ years now, and obviously monitoring very closely what's going on in industry. How has your curriculum evolved over that time period? Are there new components that you've been adding, or things that you've been recognizing as needs that you need to fill?
Of course, I would say that, well, basically every year we're gathering together while we're doing the program and say, well, what's happening new, what's new, and well, like Chuck said, well, we're training the next workforce with these new specialized technicians, but these companies, these manufacturers, they have already some needed for their employees that are already working and have some skills, but maybe don't have the level of skills that needed to their productions to be efficient. So we're working with them with customized training. So we take part of our program and build it well, and from company to another, that could be different. Like if we talk about the security, safety, working with the high voltage batteries. So while we're doing these trainings within the companies, the manufacturers, well, that help us to know what they're manufacturing, how they do it, what technologies they're using. So sometimes it's confidential, sometimes they share it with us. So we get the best knowledge this way, so we can go back to the work table and talk to each other to say what we're going to do next year, what we can improve in our program next year. So for some precise example, at the beginning, we're not doing CAN-bus communication. So now we're doing CAN-bus communication within our program. All the wiring, the crimpage of the wires, so which is there's a norm, the IPC norm for this, the quality of the wire. So make sure to be able that all these systems are well connected and will work efficiently. Well, at the beginning, we were kind of doing an overlook on that, and we rapidly saw that this was a major skills needed within the industry. So right now, we're bringing our students to get a certification from IPC that will help them, and there's a very few of these workers having this certification. So that's some examples of how we're doing to make sure that our program is still up to date as the manufacturers are evolving in their technologies.
And if I can just give you a little opportunity to brag here, I understand that your placement for your students has been pretty phenomenal as far as them finding jobs in industry.
Yeah, over 90% of our students have found a job within the next few months after their program, after their 10 months of their programs. And also we have a few students that are, well, just going on their own business, like individual workers. Some of them are mechanicians that they have their own maintenance cars business, and now they can advertise their services being also EV maintenance technicians. So most of them, 90% plus, are working in EVs still after their program. So it's a great accomplishment for them, basically, because they're the ones learning these new skills. So all the honor comes to the students who are taking that program and the teachers who are making it living.
Of course, and it does speak to the need and the growth that we are seeing in this workforce.
And every time we place students in new in industries and new companies, well, they kind of find out what we're doing with them. So we still, at the beginning, I was working with maybe 5 manufacturers, and right now my list is over 20 manufacturers that are interesting. So, and they need that workforce, of course. And what we're living here, like Chuck said, well, that's coming up to you. So that will be the situation in New England, New Hampshire, sooner or later, as much as the electrification of transport will go on. And we know now that it will.
Yeah, and a great opportunity replicating that in New Hampshire, Chuck, to bring some highly skilled workers into the workforce, which of course is just good for the region overall.
Yeah, I totally agree. And the other aspect I would add, I mean, everything Eric's saying, I'm hoping happens in New England, frankly, in the next couple of years. And I hope that's really why we're building this out. We're building for something we know should be here already, but hopefully shows up soon. The other piece I would just say is cross-training, where we've got our students, Eric's program is unbelievable, and everyone is getting jobs directly out of it, which is really kudos to him, and I guess for us, since in New Hampshire, we're not quite there, I can feel a trepidation of pigeonholing going specifically just EV for some of our students. So, and rightfully so, so they're trying to, we're talking about cross-training. That's why I say embedding within automotive, within our diesel heavy equipment. So if a piece of equipment comes into Milton Caterpillar, they can work on either or. It also makes them more employable. So we're trying to, walk that fine line of not 100% shift and swing the pendulum. But to me, it's a transition. And I think this is phase one, step one, if you will, prior to be able to be to where Eric and his team are.
Yeah, there'll definitely be some transition, and we, can't change on a dime either in terms of skills or in terms of the fleet.
Right. Just to jump on that, what Chuck is saying is very important, because employers will look, for the employers here, the manufacturers hiring our students, they love their specialized skills in EVs, but they also always look at what is their background. Are there mechanicians? Are there electricians? Are there electromechanicians? And they get different jobs, different roles within the companies based on where they come from before getting these specialized skills in EVs. So the cross training is very a major factor.
Linda, I see you've got a question. Did you have a question for the panel? We will loop back to Linda if she's having technical difficulties getting off mute here. I don't think I can do that from my side, but Linda will loop back in just a minute. Tim, you also mentioned that you had a question for the panel.
Thank you, Jonathan. Yeah, actually, my question is either for Chuck or Eric. I was amazed to know earlier this summer that obviously EV vehicle repair is a focus, but I noticed that Tesla has now gotten into competition with companies like Freightliner, Peterbilt, Mack, Volvo in trucking. Is there going to be sort of a curriculum differentiation between, and I mean, I know there would be, so can you explain it a little bit about the opportunities that it might create for EV trucking versus EV vehicle, whether it's repair, maintenance? I think I was fascinated to see another growth of the EV automobile industry, not just for personal cars, but for industrial transportation.
Sure, I'll take a quick stab and then give it to the expert Eric after. But our new facility really in Littleton is growth, Representative Egan, as you know, and we have a commercial driver training program there. So we're training people to drive trucks. We also are going to have our diesel heavy equipment program there to work both on-road and off-road. Now, 3 or 4 years ago, we were working primarily on off-road equipment, some of the large loaders, et cetera. We've infused now, we have on-road technology in there, Kenworth, Peterbilt, you name it. But also, that's why we're trying to infuse EV there as well. I'm sure I feel like I read in the newspaper every couple of days. Amazon just put in an order for 30,000 different trucks to be on. None of them autonomous, I believe, at this point, just electrified. So I think it's a very valid question. It is something when I go back to my cross training and raise it up one more step, is to say, if somebody comes in, number one, and has diesel heavy equipment as a background, wants to infuse EV. The other thing they're doing with us is they're signing up for our CDL program to learn to drive the truck. And so they can work on it, drive it, because the other thing, and I didn't think of this initially, but Kenworth, we're talking to them, they say, it's great, they can work on the truck, but they can't legally bring it in and out of the bay. So they're now getting their commercial driver's license. They're understanding how to work on it from the diesel heavy equipment. But yes, on-road trucking is in everything I'm learning, is going to be electrified before the off-road equipment is. Off-road equipment, the current barrier, in just a recent conversation with Chris Milton down at Milton Cat, the quick barrier is when you're starting new construction, you're out in a brand new field somewhere, you're not near the grid. being able to run a large piece of equipment for 12 to 14 hours a day without charging is still pretty difficult to do. So the on-road seems to be the better option at the moment, particularly with stage 3 chargers. So, your question is right in line, Representative, and we're trying to, again, thread the needle here to overlap, but also, get in front of this as well, with our facility.
On my side, I would say that, well, our program at bottom line is aiming to any kind of vehicles that could be electric. So, of course, cars are a big part of it, but the reality is that we're not producing electric cars in Quebec. We're producing basically everything else, but cars that would be in Ontario, Southern Ontario, for example. But we have trucks, we have buses, so within our programs, well, we're following that. So every year, at the end of a program, there's a project, a conversion project. So the students have to convert a gas vehicle to an electric vehicle. So right now we're doing cars. We have done motorcycles. We have done snowmobiles. We have done off-road vehicles. And I said at the beginning of the presentation, forestry, agricultural vehicles. We don't have that kind of vehicle in our program right now, but that's where we're looking at, because we know that, well, if it's coming, it's got to be part of our program, because we're aiming at training. I don't know if the word is good, but generalist. It's kind of paradoxical because they're specialized technicians, but with a generalist skills among electric vehicles. So, of course, any vehicles could be electrified. So we have a look on that to make sure that every time there's a new branch of vehicles that are going electric, that we can include them in our program, and to see if there's a difference to the thinking, the engineering of the vehicle. And the technology used. That could be a different vehicle will use different kind of battery, different battery chemicals, components, different cells, because different batteries will respond better to different needs. So that's what we're looking at. I don't know if that answered your question properly.
Most definitely did. Thank you very much, both of you.
Linda, you can go ahead now. Looks like you're off mute.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Good. Good morning, Chuck, and bonjour, Eric.
True.
Representative Linda Massanilla, and I have a question for both of you. Eric and Chuck, what would you suggest as fledgling work programs and courses are developed? Should they begin their focus on the repair and maintenance of public stations, or should they look to the repair and maintenance of electric vehicles? And my second question is, do you know if there are any programs in existence now with high school automotive programs regarding electric vehicles?
Why don't I take the quick first stab, because it will be quick, and I'll turn to Eric. But the first part you're asking about is, when students are choosing basically a path, and they are two totally different paths. One is really the auto technology side of things, and the other is, I will say, you need an electrician, for the installation. And we've sort of divided, as I mentioned earlier, Lakes Region Community College is really focused on the installation, the electric side of this, the electricians, and we don't necessarily have that side. We have the automotive technology that doing some of the EV side of things. Your point about high school, really, that's where we recruit a lot of our students. Who's getting involved at the high school level? And it's my understanding we have a lot, just for the benefit of folks on the call. We have 27 different career and technical education centers spread throughout the state that are attached to high schools. These are our technical programs. A lot of them, majority of them, I believe it's 21 of them, have automotive technology programs. So that is a place that EV is coming into. Some of these switch lab cars, the tech cars that I mentioned earlier that become kits, some of those through the Department of Education are going out to the career and tech centers. New Hampshire Automobile Dealers Association as well has been supporting that. And I believe in the next year or so, Representative, they are starting to get there. Our automotive faculty are in communication with the career and tech centers to really create a feeder, a pipeline, but also a relationship. Kennett High School, which is down in North Conway, did the same training as our automotive instructor last year. When that kit car came, it came with a training, sort of a how to assemble, disassemble. So it's here. It's just not as advanced as where St. Jerome and Eric's team is at the moment, but it's certainly coming. I look forward to hearing what Eric has to say on this.
I'll start with the last question regarding the link with high school. You mentioned the path that the students want to have at Chuck. That's the bottom line. I mean, we have to make sure that these paths are interesting for the student. They're kind of a great answers to what they want to do with their careers. Here in Quebec, the automotive program and I would say heavy vehicles mechanical programs are linked to the high school level. It's kind of a prolongation of when they reach their high school diploma, they can continue within the same institution and doing this automotive. So as a college, we come just the next step to make sure that they can become technicians. And our course, we have partnership with automotive schools, program schools in Saint Jerome, and also heavy vehicle mechanical schools in Saint Jerome. In fact, this is where we're giving our courses. We're actually sharing the facilities with them. So we have a great connection with these students. So they know that, they like the automotive mechanics, so they can take that program, and then after that they can go and become technicians in EVs. Or right now it's new, they have an answer. So if they want not to be a technician in the manufacturing of EVs, but stay at the maintenance level, they can do that too. So they don't have to take all of our program. They just continue their program. They have a kind of an added module of trainings that give them the basic skills needed to do the basic maintenance of EVs. So that's for, I would say, the high school. First question, what kind of program, if I remember well, what kind of program, what institution should be aiming at as a program? I would say it depends on the economic ecosystem that you have in your area. Do you have manufacturers? So you need to have technicians being able to work with engineers and create, fabricate, and producing these vehicles. If you don't have vehicle manufacturers, but you have a population that is buying electric cars, then maintenance will be your main focus, because that's what people are going to need. They're going to go back to the dealer, but they can use their independent mechanicians. So anybody who will have to do the after-sales service for these vehicles will need them. Also, if you have school boards that are buying electric school buses, then, they'll need people to operate them, to do the maintenance. But if you have companies that are manufacturing, then maybe the technician level will be the good thing to aim at.
I think it's also interesting to see how companies are evolving to address this need before we have a fully developed workforce and a fully developed career path here. And I'll point again to some of our members who are, primarily solar installers, who are now also doing energy storage. They're putting Tesla power walls in people's homes, and they're putting charging infrastructure in people's homes. So these are people who have good expertise as electricians, and they're leveraging that into some of these vehicle adjacent fields, and I think all of that, the people who are doing that kind of work directly, and the more schools that are offering these programs, they make that career path visible to people who are in high school now, and so that visibility is going to be really important to making sure that 5 years from now we have a larger crop graduating, and 10 years from now, when hopefully our vehicle electrification is much farther along, we are able to address all of those needs on both the vehicle side and the support infrastructure side. Michael, I see you've got your hand up.
Thanks, Jonathan, and thanks everybody for this panel. At the beginning, Eric, you mentioned agricultural vehicles and other industrial products. And I think that might be of interest for some of the folks that are on the line. I know it would be interesting for me to hear that. We think a lot about larger trucks. We think a lot about personal use vehicles, but certainly in northern New England, I think the supportive vehicles on an agricultural and a farm and in industrial processes would be of interest. Could you share a little bit more on that and how you see the decarbonization of that sector going?
Well, I'll share with you what I know. Probably that one of the engineers of the Innovative Vehicle Institution will have a lot more to say, because I know that they're working on that. So right now it's in development. So there's project to make sure that, well, if we have an agricultural vehicle that is running in the field, well, could be electrified. So how can we manage to make sure that the certification will serve the farmer or owner of the agricultural plant to see, well, is it efficient? How long would be the autonomy of the vehicle? They're working also to making them, you said it earlier, Chuck, autonomous. Is that a good word?
Yeah. Self-driving.
So they're working on both. So right now, as I know, is that I have students that are working within their program at the institute, the IVI, that have worked on this program. But where it is at this time, I don't have any other information on this. Besides, it's coming. They're working on it. So, and the fact is that, well, they're working on it. You know, when you're developing a new branch of electric vehicles, well, you have some bumps and jumps. So maybe at the beginning, the first solutions are not quite efficiently sufficient, so that to market them. But if I take, for example, all the work they've done in the past years, I'm pretty sure that sooner or later they'll come up with solutions that probably it's going to be a choice that could be made when you buy these big agricultural vehicles, that you could have one with an electrification motorization instead of diesel or gasoline.
You know, there's only a matter of time before we electrify everything, and from a climate perspective, probably sooner rather than later would be good. I think we have time for one last question. Peter, I think you had flagged something that you were interested in.
A little more of a kind of a lighthearted question. I wonder, Chuck or Eric, if you've seen any surprising sources for workers, for the EV workforce, people looking to get reskilled or upskilled. Obviously, we can all think of how an automotive technician or diesel mechanic moves over to electric vehicles. But I've wondered if you've been surprised by, you know, people who are good at telecommunications installation or personal computer repair or other fields like that. Are there people you've seen who, it turns out, when it's an electric car, they turn out to be a pretty good vehicle technician as well?
We've seen a little bit of every situation you've mentioned there. People with more of an informatic background doing great in our program, because there's a lot of computer stuff in our program, of course. The main one that I could remember is that we have there's a policy that we can admit to our program people who don't have a first diploma, like mechanicians or electricians, but based on their working experience. And so we have every year some students that are, I would call them self-engineers. So they don't have any diploma, but they like to work on electronic stuff, mechanicals. They're aware of the new technology. Sometimes they're aware of new technology news before we are. They bring this information to us within their program when they're participating in the program. So I could see that people even that didn't have a great, that's not a good word, didn't have any educational background really other than high school. They've worked all their life. Well, some of them are very great students because they build that knowledge, and they now with us can maybe structure that knowledge, these skills, to be able to know what they're doing instead of working more by instinct. Now they can maybe have a more prepared approach to the problem, the challenge they have to solve, that we're giving them in the courses regarding motor, batteries, or even at the end, complete vehicles. So that would be my main surprise for me, was that, well, people arriving in our program without first diploma are doing well for most of them.
And I guess I would just add quickly, I know we're running short on time, but we're in our infancy, at this moment, clearly, but with our students just being introduced to the kit car in the lab, the students who come and talk, our welders are walking in, looking at that, our industrial mechanics, our folks working on power generation. There's an interest level of anyone who likes to work with their hands, people who like to critically think. I mean, more broadly, people look and say, geez, that's interesting. And just enough to say, when there's a course online or when there's a certificate, maybe I would get a stackable credential. Maybe that is something, from a personal interest level, not necessarily from a profession. And I think that's another whole, discussion down the road, is the personal interest of being able to maybe work on your own vehicle, or, be able to, to put things together. So there's a lot of we're high in the technical trades programs, and there's a lot of, people who like to work with their hands, understand how systems work and put things together and whatnot. So that's just some initial observations.
Well, thank you, Chuck, and thank you, Eric. This was a great discussion, and thank you to Peter and the NECBC for organizing this opportunity. And I think we'll yield before the closing remarks.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you very much, John.